Good morning and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This is Nick Wright. It is one of those mornings when you just put too much coffee in your cup and then it spills all over your scripts before you start your
My scripts are in great shape, Jenna. You're fine.
Yep.
Look at that.
It's
all good.
Perfect. Thank you. I love this team that I work with. We have a great show for you today. That's the team. Brett Favre has high praise for Patty Mahomes. The Patriots are dealing with even more injuries, but we're going to start with a little preview of Thursday night
football. Did she say I'm Cris Carter?
She did.
I did.
Right
Did I
after she
that?
forgot her name.
Okay.
Did I not say my name?
You just stumbled for a moment, but it's okay, Jenna. It's been a rough morning already. Go ahead.
Here we go. It's Thursday. Eagles are up at Lambeau to face the Packers tonight. Been a bit of a bumpy start for Philly at 1-2, a team plagued by injuries and having a hard time protecting Carson Wentz. Meanwhile, the Packers undefeated thanks to their defense, which has allowed the second fewest points in the league so far. Packers still need to get their offense going, but the Eagles need to get seemingly everything going. All right, C, we'll start with you. What do you think the key is to tonight's matchup?
Well, this is a game that we've bragged for the last couple years about how good their offense and defensive line. Yesterday, Nick, you talked about how just average to poor the defensive line has played.
Philadelphia's got the second fewest sacks of any team in football this year.
And if you take that offensive line, when you go on the road, go on the Lambeau Field, and there's no place that I'm more familiar with in the NFL as far as going to a venue and how you got to win. And it's impossible to win if you turn the ball over. We all know that anywhere. But if your offense and defensive line don't play great in Lambeau Field, it's a different type of atmosphere. Man, it's good. Thursday night, it's going to be electric. It's like a high school stadium when you come in there, you're riding on a bus, and you're like, man, I'm in this small little town. Then you see the lights and everything. It's like, wow. It's like, really, if you build it, they will come. Players are always excited to play there. So we talk about the skilled people, but this is really about the big guys. And the offensive line, especially of the Philadelphia Eagles, if they could take control of this game, if Jason Peters could get back to the way he played a couple seasons ago. Now, he's one of the oldest linemen, him and Whitworth, there with the Rams in the NFL. Can he redeem that? So for me, if I attack him up front, I can keep some pressure off Carson Wentz. I do believe that Alshon Jeffrey is a huge help because he is a first down machine, helps them move the chains, and he's more used to being a number one, him and Zach Ertz, compared to Nelson Aguilar. If you look at the last couple of weeks in Atlanta, with the injuries mounting, we need Nelson Aguilar to step up. What does he do? He drops the big pass late in the game. Last week was awful. Him as the leader of that wide receiver group, they dropped 7 passes. It's impossible to win a game. But I'm going to rely on the guys up front, Jenna. We bragged about them. The reason why you picked them as the Super Bowl pick to represent the NFC is not only because of their depth, because of their general manager and their ability to play well, especially in big-time spots. So we're going to be relying on that tonight.
And having Alshon Jeffrey back on a short week is critical because a player that not a lot of people know about, but a lot more people are going to know about him after tonight is second-year corner Jair Alexander. He is playing like an all-pro level corner in year 2 already. He was excellent last year. You would assume, because Jeffrey's back, that Jeffrey will be matched up more with Jair Alexander. Aguilar will get the more beneficial matchup, the one that he's more likely to take advantage of, and he will only have to now be their third option. Number 1 option, probably Zach Ertz. Number 2 option, Alshon Jeffrey. Number 3 option, Nelson Aguilar. But I am really concerned about Philly. A lot of the things that Cris talked about that we took as a given they'd be good at, they haven't been good at. Now that one of the things Cris didn't mention, but I thought they'd be good at. What about running the football? What about Jordan Howard, who I had been extolling his praises all offseason, that I thought they stole him from Chicago? Well, now you're through 3 weeks. You can see why Chicago was okay letting him go. Miles Sanders, who they went out and drafted. Philly has not had a consistent running game. Now,
and I don't believe it's Jordan Howard either, Nick. I believe it's just like in Chicago. It's the lack of opportunities. Running backs take a rhythm. He's not a scat back. He's a fairly bigger guy. And those guys need rep. Because you could even see in watching the film, there's some times where the offensive linemen were thinking one way and he was reading it a different way. He needs the reps.
He hasn't been able to have a single game where you get 18, 20, 22 carries, which is what you're talking about. He's got 25 carries on the season. I During week 1, we joke with our great statistician Dusty all the time, but he's a big Eagles fan. During week 1, I texted him when they were down 17-0 to Washington. I was like, what the hell's going on with your team? And his point was an interesting one. He said they have too many weapons, meaning they were trying to get too many different people involved and that you couldn't get anyone a rhythm. Well, that sounded like a good problem until all of a sudden some of the weapons get hurt. You're still not finding a way to get in rhythm. And defensively, you're not doing what you need to do because for Philadelphia, as you pointed out yesterday, man, it gets really hard coming up. Yes, they get the Jets on with a long week to get prepared for them. And then it is 3 consecutive road games against 3 top 5 defenses, Minnesota, Dallas, Buffalo, then a home game against the best defense in football, Chicago, and then New England.
And you got to calculate some injuries in there. And they're already last Wednesday they couldn't practice.
And so if they lose today and they fall to 1-3, how many losses do you have to play with the rest of the year? 2, 3 maximum, with as tough of a 5-game stretch as anyone has in football from week 6 to 11. That is highly concerning. The Packers would love to get to 4-0. The Eagles have to get to 2-2.
Here's why I'm not worried about the Eagles. First of all, they do get Alshon Jeffrey back, which is fine. Look at their last 2 games. They lost them by a combined 7 points. So at least they had an opportunity and they were in it despite having so many injuries. And they're going up against a Packers team who hasn't figured out their offense yet. Is there a way the Packers can win if they don't change their offensive scheme or the success that they've had with that offense?
Well, I think they will make some adjustments. It's only been 3 weeks. When you have the lead at the beginning of the game, especially when you're going against very good defenses where you don't want to take chances. Week number 1, I got to double team Khalil Mack. I'm concerned about Hicks in the middle. So protection-wise, I'm really at a disadvantage. The next week against the Minnesota Vikings, who have always given Aaron Rodgers and that Packers offense a situation because they're so deep, not only at linebacker, as far as their defensive front. And then last week, we have Von Miller, Chubb. Protection is I can't get too fancy in those games. Nick pointed out they've only been behind in
7 minutes this
7
season.
minutes of football. So why do I need to take chances? I'm trying to learn this. I do believe in this game their third down package will be a little bit better, and sometime when you get a secondary like Philadelphia, you're amazed at how the coaches light up, the players light up, because Philadelphia's secondary, especially with Darby being nicked up, they can be had. So Aaron Rodgers, this could be their breakout game in prime time against that secondary that there are a lot of question marks about the corners.
And this is the first game all year where Rodgers looks across the field and says, okay, I'm going to have to match that quarterback. I'm going to have to, like, when you're looking across to see Mitch Trubisky, you say, I just need not to screw this up. When you're looking across and you see Joe Flacco, you make sure it's still 2019 and you say, okay, I got to not screw this up. Now, Cousins, week 1, when it looked like, okay, what Kirk Cousins is this? Rodgers was great early. They're up 21-0, or week 2, I should say, pardon me. But they're up 21-0 instantly, and then the offense, went in hibernation mode. I'm very interested to see if we see a more aggressive Aaron Rodgers, because Carson Wentz, who has played well this year, despite the drops, is the opposing quarterback. And you can't get, I don't believe, a 10-point lead on Philly and just say we're going to coast this car home. You're going to have to keep accumulating points, because the Philly offense, despite its struggles, still has the ability to be highly explosive.
Is there a coaching element to this? Can the Packers be outcoached by Doug Peterson?
Well, this is the thing. Matt LaFleur, because of that defense, and they've played so well, he's the coach that's not getting criticized. Out of all the new coaches, first-year coaches, man, they're struggling. He's undefeated. Collectively, the rest of them only have 1 win. So I wouldn't get into the coaching matchup right now, because their defensive coordinator has done a tremendous job. That's a team that's led by their defense. But we know that Aaron Rodgers could strike at any moment. Doug Peterson, he's going to have to come up with one of his better coaching jobs, because that offensive line against that defensive front has not been good.
Are you ready for what's ahead? You can't always predict the future, but you can game plan for it. Generations of families and businesses have harnessed the power of Pacific to help them reach their unique goals. Whether you need to save money to meet your needs, ensure your family is protected, or make sure you don't run out of money, Pacific Life has a variety of financial solutions that can help. Pacific Life counts more than half of the 100 largest U.S. companies as its clients and has been named one of the 2019 world's most ethical companies by the Ethisphere Institute. Protecting what matters most to people for 150 years and counting, that's the power of Pacific. Ask a financial professional about how Pacific Life can help you game plan for your future. Or visit www.pacificlife.com. All right, the Browns head into Week 4 still scratching their collective heads a bit as to why this team is off to such a slow start. Hey, many thought that by adding Odell Beckham to this talented roster, the team would flourish. But Cleveland is scoring just 16 points per game. That is tied for 27th in the NFL. Baker was asked about his team's struggles, and he had this to say.
We expected to have success early on. We didn't expect it to be easy, but I think that's the frustrating part is we wanted it to be easy, but now I think we really know it's not. People are going to game plan. They're going to have a certain strategy for us, and we need to be able to adapt. Talent's not going to take us there. We just have to do our job.
You know, contrary to popular belief, we're not that far away. So, you know, it's my job to make these guys understand that, and I think they do. I think they've bought into the fact that they don't really care what's going on outside of our building.
You hear a lot of things, you know, stuff pops up on your phone, or stuff's on the TV, or, I mean, it's just people talk. And so you just have to make a conscious decision, you know, to protect your locker room and take care of your guys and block out the negative stuff. And, you know, when they're patting you on the back, to me, that's even worse.
Look, Baker and Freddie Kitchens are both reading everything that is being written about them and said about them, but Baker said very clearly he wanted this season to be easy, and the guys felt the same way. What was your reaction to Baker's comments?
You know what we're starting to get in the NFL? We're starting to get a lot of, and it's got to be the athletes, we're starting to get a lot of players respond the same way guys do in the NBA. Man, we talked about Kyrie Irving. We talked about KD the last couple years and their comments about the media. You would have sworn that the Browns were playing against people in the media last week when the Rams, they couldn't block the Rams and everything. Like you can't continually, week after week, talk about distractions, talk about outside stuff. The teams that know how to win, and that was one of the problems with the Browns. They got a lot of players that haven't won at a high level and haven't won for a long period of time. So Baker saying something like, oh, we wanted it to be easy, that was idiotic. There is no offense in the league that's good that thinks it's going to be easy or wants it to be easy. There's nothing easy about the National Football League. Now, maybe after starting those 9 games, this is what young players do. They think the NFL is easier than what they anticipated after playing a year. And a lot of times, you don't see that big jump in year 2 or year 3. And our greatest players, the greatest players we've ever had play the game, especially at quarterback, though, and Nick, you've pointed this out, man, that year number 1 to 2 and 2 to 3, man, they put up some historic type numbers if they're iconic players in the game. So for me, you have to learn how to win. This Browns team doesn't know how to do that yet. And they need to concentrate on the fundamentals. Their offensive line had not been good. Freddie Kitchens' play calling has not been good. How they're going to get Odell Beckham trying to move him around in certain spots because they got injuries at the other receiver and the tight end, it hadn't been great. So they need to make adjustment. It's not the media's fault. He's talking about, oh, we need to block out all the outside. You keep letting in all the outside stuff by your comments. This is a team that needs, an organization that needs to know how to win. And one thing Jenna said when we were coming out of preseason, all right, let's see when some adversity hits them. Let's see when we start playing these real games.
Well, and so we'll see for the first. I think this is their first real adversity. I understand they played poorly in week 1, but you can only, unless you have devastating injuries, week 1 is only week 1. And then they followed week 1 up with a win. Now, we might have said it was an ugly win, but it was a 3-score win on national TV where the defense holds the opposition to 3 points. It was this past weekend's game where the defense did its job, where Freddie Kitchens is calling draws on 4th and 9, where they can't run the ball inside the 5-yard line with a chance to force overtime. And now you're facing the Ravens, where you are, to me, this is the first real adversity Baker Mayfield has faced in his NFL career. Because everything last year was all bonus. You didn't even start the year as a starter. Yeah, the team had won one game combined the previous 2 seasons.
Yeah, there were so many other things going on. They fired the coach.
Absolutely. There was not going to be any bad headlines.
And that's why he wanted it to be fun. He went 5-3 in 8 games last year and was like, well, I want this to be easy. All of a sudden he comes into this season and there's real adversity.
Well, okay, and so exactly. And so we'll see how they respond to it this week. But I'm going to use one of my favorite quotes from you that I don't think you came up with. I don't know where you got it, though. I love it, which is sometimes if Johnny can't read, it's not Johnny's fault, it's the teacher's fault.
Yeah, Dennis Green.
Okay. Sometimes if your quarterback in year 2 thinks the NFL's supposed to be easy, it's not your quarterback's fault, it's the coach's fault. Because it is the coach's job to let you know it ain't going to be easy. And to me, I knew the offensive line was going to be a problem for Cleveland, but we have seen teams overcome worse offensive lines. The Freddie Kitchens situation is a tenuous one. And the biggest mismatch this weekend is not the Browns offensive line against the Ravens front. It's not the Browns linebacking core trying to handle Lamar Jackson in and out of the pocket. The biggest mismatch this weekend is John Harbaugh against Freddie Kitchens. Is John Harbaugh who...
And boy, you loved him, Harbaugh. It's just justified now.
This one I'm not wrong about.
He's one of one.
He's
Nick.
one of... And, by the way, he's the only coach that I can think of, at least in modern NFL history, certainly contemporary coaches, that has a similar path to being a head coach as Freddie Kitchens did. John Harbaugh went from special teams coach, defensive backs coach for 10 years with Philly to head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. Freddie Kitchens went from running backs coach to head coach of the Cleveland Browns. There's a lot of things in John Harbaugh Freddie Kitchens maybe should try to emulate or learn from, but I'll tell you this much. There is no chance Lamar Jackson came into this season, even though his team made the playoffs, even though he only lost 1 game in the regular season last year, even though they were more successful than the Browns in the same draft class, there is no chance Lamar came into this season saying, this is going to be easy.
Mentality.
Yes. It's about to just lay out for me. And I don't... You can partially blame Baker for thinking it's going to be easy, but it's his job. It's the coach's job to let him know it's going to be harder than you can possibly imagine, and I don't think he knew that.
I just think a lot of this, again, is just way too much talking, way too much opening up the door for distractions, and way too much of the worrying about what's written. Oh, you can write what you want, just too much of that. And if they focused a little bit more just on a game plan or what who their opponent is, or a couple of no comments, or I don't have anything to say about that, I feel like they'd be in better shape.
And every week in this league, people are coming up with witty concepts, defenses. Last week, one of the best that we've seen in the NFL over the last 30 years, Wade Phillips. That was the defense he's going against. This week, Baltimore, you talk about John Harbaugh, Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator, one of the best they have in the league. They'll be upset about the opportunity they blew last week in Kansas City, and they're going to get after Baker Mayfield because Kansas City's offensive line performed a lot better than the Cleveland offensive line. So look for a formidable test from that defense of Baltimore trying to get – this is going to be difficult, and for them to dig themselves out of it, it's going to be them. Don't look outside of the room. It's going to be them. But also, if it doesn't go well, don't look outside the room. Don't start blaming people.
Well, and I'll add one other thing, and this is a little prediction for me. Even if the Browns win, these things you're concerned about are going to continue to rear their heads throughout the year because if they win, this feels to me like a team that will say, we figured it out. That if despite all of this, you go to Baltimore, you upset them, you're first in the division, that it's going to be rinse, repeat on, see, guys, told you we had this fine. Now, I still think this is potentially a really good team, but those self-inflicted wounds you're concerned about, I don't think go away win or loss this
I know
week.
Baltimore takes the field. John Harbaugh is their coach, 19-3. He's personally head-to-head versus Cleveland.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's 19-3 is pretty good.
Hey guys, this is Jenna Wolfe. I'm here to tell you about Noom. Some people think that all diet and weight loss plans are the same, but that's because they haven't tried Noom. Noom is a new, totally different approach to losing weight and getting healthy that uses psychology and small goals to help you change your habits, making it easy to lose the weight and keep it off for good. Noom combines the power of technology with real human support, offering as little or as much help as you want along the way. And since Noom is an app, it's always with you and easy to use, which makes it super easy to stay on track and reach your goals. It's just as simple to get started. Go online, answer a few quick questions, and they'll create a personalized program just for you. Noom can help you lose your old way of thinking about food and dieting. So what do you have to lose? Visit Noom.com/podcast, NOOM.com/podcast, and start your 14-day trial today. Change your habits, change your mind, change for good with Noom. Time now for Say What. Before Gardner Minshew was taking the NFL by storm, he was trying to earn a name for himself at ECU. Apparently, that included some extreme measures to try to extend his college career. Say what?
Yeah, so the attempt at broken hand. It was like, that was really the only way for me to get a red shirt, at the time, to get a medical. So I had the bright idea to try to break my hand, but it didn't work. I guess fortunately, I was looking back, it was pretty dumb. Believe it or not, that breaking your hand is pretty dumb.
He was trying to break his hand on purpose so he'd get a red shirt, so he could improve in the offseason and then have a real chance playing quarterback. John Starks did that. John Starks was on a trial basis with the Knicks, knew he was about to get cut, got hurt intentionally so he could stay with the team, and then became John Starks.
Wow.
Yeah, Jenna, I know you might not like the stash, but this kid has done everything from a training standpoint. He's tried to learn. He's worked with some of my people down in South Florida, the passing academy that we have down there. He has really earned his way into the NFL. It's a tremendous story.
It's a great story, and Nick Foles might get Nick Foles'd.
That was my line. He might get Nick Foles. He seriously got in there, played a game, and he might be out of there.
Yeah, might happen.
Thursday Night Football back tonight on Fox. Eagles, Packers, a matchup of two elite teams in the NFC. Nick, what are you looking forward to tonight?
I think this is the Aaron Rodgers breakout game.
Okay.
I think that Aaron Rodgers gets on track. I think he sees Carson Wentz across the field and recognizes can't rely just on the defense. And I think the story tomorrow is, are the Packers the best team in the NFC, and are the Eagles already a season on the brink and we haven't even hit October? That's what I'm looking forward to.
I believe Carson Wentz, this could be one of the better wins he's had as a starter.
Ooh.
Taking the team banged up on the road, dueling against Aaron Rodgers and that great defense that they do have. This is one of the better Thursday night matchups. Glad we have it on Fox. It's our first one this year. Should be exciting. Del Fresco's is catering the food, too, if y'all want to come back tonight.
Oh, you know who just bought Del Fresco's? Tillman Fertitta, our friend who owns the Rockets, bought them all. $650 million.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Just a little news, a little business news. First things first.
Melvin Gordon, who has been holding out, will be reportedly rejoining the Chargers today, but he will not play Sunday in Miami against the Dolphins. See, how much of a boost will his return give the Chargers?
He'll definitely help the Chargers. He didn't win in trying to do what he was trying to do.
Nope.
Because what you have to do, hold out to the end of training camp. You eyeball them, Jenna. Are they going to give in?
They made it very clear they weren't.
And it's the Chargers. Man, the Chargers don't blink for anyone. So, yes, they are a better football team. And Melvin Gordon, I believe, is still underrated. Can he stay healthy? Dual threat out of the backfield, can run it between the tackles, got breakaway speed, and is a good receiver out of the backfield.
Listen, I feel for Melvin Gordon, but he overplayed his hand horribly in
You
this.
played yourself.
He played himself. See, he's going to play this year for half price.
Oh, yeah.
He lost 4 regular season game checks for the preseason games.
And $1 million in fines.
Right. He's going to end up playing this year for half price because this holdout went awry. I hope he stays healthy. I hope he gets that big contract.
They must have taught him that at Wisconsin because they don't teach that at them other Big Ten schools.
Man, I don't know how. Bad representation.
They got a very good business school, too.
Right. Well, his agent must not have gone there.
Troy
Bad
Vincent
advice.
graduated from there. Man, some smart people went there.
All right, moving on to the Dallas Cowboys. Last week, rookie running back Tony Pollard picked up his first career 100-yard rushing game. Guess who's okay with that? Fellow running back Ezekiel Elliott. See, you agree with the Cowboys' strategy?
Of course. Zeke knows I'm not worried about that. He ain't taking any of Zeke's carries. I mean, the game got out of control, so he was able to get those reps. It's only going to help the Cowboys because the truth of the matter is he can be a change of pace for Ezekiel Elliott, but it's supposed to be on third down. It's not going to be on first or second down. So as you get into the late months, as Dallas gets win after win, yes, anytime you can relieve that burden, because this is not the Dallas Cowboys team that Zeke and Dak have been on the last 3 years. They got more balance, and they do need a guy that could specialize and be a specialty item coming out of that backfield, and I believe Pollard can be that back.
And I believe, with the rare exception of a Frank Gore, of an Emmitt Smith, maybe of a Curtis Martin, that the vast majority, even of all-time great running backs, have a certain number of carries in their body. From high school, college, pro, I don't know what the number is, but they've got an expiration date of total carries. So if you can have someone else, now that he's already gotten paid, if you can have someone else take some of those carries early on to maybe not even help him this year, but help extend his career into the future, of course that's an ideal situation. Zeke doesn't need no 30 carries against the Dolphins. He needs 30 carries maybe in 2 weeks against Green Bay. Now he's more likely to be fresh for that game because of Tony Pollard.
All right, moving on. Lamar Jackson off to a great start in his sophomore season. Ravens are 2-1 this season and big favorites over the Browns Sunday. Lamar has been showing off his arm. He's 8th in the league in passing yards per game after being ranked 29th last season, and he plans to keep it that way.
I hate running, only if I have to, but my job is to get the ball to the receivers, the tight ends, running backs. If I have to run, I'll do it. But I'd rather just sit back and pass it.
What do you think of what Lamar had to say, C?
It's awesome because I watched Michael Vick's whole career. I got a lot of respect for Michael Vick, the most dynamic dual threat that we've had play this game. Lamar's concept of passing and how I'm going to get better is the 180-degree opposite of Michael Vick at this time. And Michael's working here at Fox, and somebody can ask him later today, in year number 2, Michael Vick was not thinking about that. Because remember Dan Reeves used to say, well, it's the Michael Vick experience. I just want you to go out there and make plays. No, that's not no way to train no quarterback. Because ultimately, yes, we want better athletes playing the position, but ultimately you have to win a game from the pocket. And your mindset becomes critical in developing as a pocket. Donovan McNabb, early in his career, even though he's a great athlete, he became a pocket passer. And that was the thing that Michael Vick didn't get until later on. Randall Cunningham didn't get till later on. Cam Newton still doesn't have. So for me, it's really refreshing, and it lets you know that that organization, Steve Bisciotti being the owner, John Harbaugh being the coach, Greg Roman being the coordinator, that they are saying the right things to this kid, and his mind is in the right place for growth. That's amazing. I'm so glad that he's able to see that because he might be the fastest quarterback that we have. And he doesn't want to run, man, he's only going to continue to grow at the position there.
And this is why I said, and it sounded maybe a little counterintuitive, but why I said I thought for him specifically, having the first 2 weeks of this season be Miami and Arizona was so important and so good for him. Because, listen, Miami's given up a quarterback rating to the opposition of 140. 158 is perfect. So they're turning every quarterback into a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, reinforce that offseason and everything.
Arizona is giving up a quarterback rating this year of 120. That would be the best in the league this year for anyone not named Patrick Mahomes. So every quarterback they're playing is turning into a all-pro. So having those first 2 games be, all right, I spent all offseason working on my throwing, trying not to just be a runner, and then having it pay dividends, I think that will help him enormously going into the rest of the year because he might struggle against Cleveland. Cleveland's got a good defense. He struggled a little bit against Kansas City, missing some passes. Like, this isn't going to just be smooth sailing. Lamar might have been the league MVP through 2 weeks. He's not going to be the league MVP through 12 weeks, but he still could have taken enormous steps forward. But if the beginning of his season, if he'd gone against the defenses Aaron Rodgers did, Chicago and Minnesota,
right,
and it's like, man, I've got 1 touchdown, 3 picks. I'm completing 58% of my passes. I need to go back to what's always worked for me. I think that could have hindered his overall growth.
So the little struggle, the little step back he took last week against KC, is that more where we're going to see Lamar Jackson, or was that credit to the Kansas City defense?
Well, the way he played, I was proud of the way he played. I mean, he was just a little off. 3 times right off the tips of the tight end, twice off the tips of the wide receiver. The way he hung in there against it. I mean, Patty Mahomes was playing lights out, and for them to be able to hang in, let's just say Kansas City's defense is better. Kansas City is one of the tougher places to play. This was more like one of the first playoff games we had of the season. So I think Lamar would expect himself to play better, but there were times in the game where he was spectacular. He's still learning. As Nick said, there's going to be some ebb and flow to this. He's going to have some setbacks. But overall, as a passer, he's the most improved passer that we've seen in the league in a few years.
And listen, home opener, Kansas City, rainstorm, where Mahomes drops 30 in the first 3 quarters. Like, it has a 23-point second quarter barrage, so you're down 3 scores most of the second half. Like, those are adverse circumstances. Right. Now, Cleveland's going to be the best defense they've played, but he's back at home. You're not going to have to match as many points. And I think he's in a better position this week than he was last week, even if Cleveland's the better defense.
All right, let's move on to the Chiefs. Speaking of, they're in Detroit Sunday to face an undefeated Lions team. No biggie for Patrick Mahomes, the reigning MVP, currently on pace for 53 touchdowns and 6,300 passing yards this season. Peyton Manning, the only player to toss that many touchdowns in a season, and no player in NFL history has ever come close to 6,000 yards. Hall of Famer Brett Favre couldn't speak highly enough about Patty Mahomes.
Really, he's doing something that is obviously tremendous. Prolific is really an understatement. You can't really put into words what this guy has done. And if he continues, which you got to figure, it's kind of like, I've always said, at some point, the size and speed of the guys has got to level off, right? Don't we always say that?
Yeah.
But yet it hasn't. And I think with Patrick Mahomes, I think we have to look at it from that standpoint. I think the guy, barring injury, will set a standard that everyone will be chasing for a long, long time.
That is high praise from one of the greatest quarterbacks to play in the game. Nick, is there even a ceiling for Patrick Mahomes?
Well, the ceiling for Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback of all time. That's the ceiling, and that is a reachable ceiling. Now, the greatest doesn't mean he wins 7 Super Bowls. There's the Dan Marino is one of the 5 greatest quarterbacks ever. He has 0 Super Bowls. Yep. It can't just be a count the rings argument. But what we've seen from Patrick Mahomes through 20 games is the greatest open to a career any quarterback has ever had. He's now played 20 games. They've won 16 of them. He averages 3 touchdowns and 325 yards passing per game. It's impossible what he's doing. Through this season, despite not having played the Patriots or the Cowboys schedule, having played Jacksonville and Baltimore, he's number 1 in the league in yards and yards per attempt and touchdowns and in passer rating. And I'm going to be very precise with my words here because I don't want this to be misconstrued. To me, there are 4 individual quarterback seasons that stand out above the rest. There's Rodgers in 2011 when he had 45 touchdowns, 6 picks, over 9 yards per pass. There's the undefeated Pats team in 07, Brady with Moss. Manning in 2013, the 55 touchdown year in Denver. And what I think is the greatest quarterback year ever, Dan Marino in 1984. In a totally different era, when he threw 48 touchdowns, had a 109 rating at a time when an 80 rating was good. Patrick Mahomes right now is playing at a higher level than any of those players at any of those years.
Wow.
So I believe right now he's playing the position as well as it's been played. The ceiling will be determined by how long he can maintain this level.
I've seen versions of this. I'm glad you mentioned Marino 1984, being from Ohio. My second school choice was the University of Pittsburgh. Dan Marino, University of Pittsburgh, helped recruit me. Dan was one of my favorite quarterbacks. Dan Marino played at this level, but Dan Marino wasn't supported for the long duration of his career. At the beginning, yes, he did have Shula. He did have Clayton. He did have Duper. He did have those things, but he didn't have a running game, and he didn't have a defense. That's what prevented Dan from really being involved in the conversation of the greatest quarterbacks ever. And then I saw Brett Favre being traded after the Atlanta Falcons gave up on him after a car accident at Southern Miss that people didn't realize who Brett Favre was. He came to the Packers, and he was amazing. Athleticism, better than Dan, but throwing the ball on the run, probably a stronger arm than Dan and would take more chances than Dan would do. And then we saw the Peyton Manning. And that was supported by a coach was going to allow him to go back into the 70s and call every play against every defense. In his brain, we saw it dissect the NFL. But if it wasn't supported by those coaching staff, those organizations, he wouldn't have been able to continue that. And then we have the GOAT and Tom Brady. Started off very, very slow. He's going to be a game manager, evolved into a great thrower of the football, and is the best pressure player that we've ever seen, supported by Belichick. Now, for me, the reason why Patty Mahomes is so special is Andy Reid is playing a style of football that we can see his ability. Who's throwing the running backs up the sideline? Just pretty much Andy Reid. Who's throwing the 4-3 guys? They got 3 guys that can run 4-3, 4-4 on the field at one. They're playing like UNLV fast break because they got a quarterback and because Andy Reid. So if they continue to support him, all right, Patty Mahomes is going to be a special thrower of the football. As far as being the greatest ever, I'm still watching Tom Brady. And I'm not a millennial, so I know everything now is greater than it's ever been. I'm watching Tom Brady, and it's going to be hard to duplicate the greatness in the greatest moments that Tom Brady has shown. Fourth quarter and overtimes, he's got 2 Hall of Fame careers, so there's more to quarterbacking than just calling plays and throwing the football. Tom Brady is the best quarterback. That's managing your team, managing the situation, managing the pressure, and doing it for a long period of time.
I don't think I would bet an enormous amount of money, all the money I could, that when I die, the most accomplished quarterback of all time will still be Tom Brady. I don't see anyone coming close to. He makes the Super Bowl 1 every 2 years. He wins it 1 every 3. Like those are basketball type of numbers for dynasties in a 5-man sport instead of a 53-man roster. So I think Brady is going to end up on the top of the mountain on a timeline that can go as far as my eye can see. That to me, though, is, and I'm parsing a bit, but a different question than who has played the position at the highest level it's ever been played. And right now, there's not something that I can say Patrick Mahomes can't do. And as far as pressure goes, Chris, we've only seen him in the playoffs the one time. He drove his team back 3 separate times in the second half against the New England Patriots, only to have his defense let him down 4 separate times in that football game.
This is the thing, Nick. Patty Mahomes is going to have an opportunity, but I've been fortunate enough, I've been covering this game long enough. The last 10 years, we've been saying the same thing. Man, there's a guy in Green Bay. Never seen anybody throw the ball like him. Man, he can throw it through the wind. Man, the way he throws the ball, never seen an arm like him. He could be the... But what happened? So there's still a lot of stuff to be done. Because Aaron Rodgers is pretty special at throwing the ball, but all that conversation has subsided. Because since then, Brady's won another one, and another one, and another one.
3 since Rodgers won his first.
Yes.
Brady had 3 before Rodgers won his first, and he's won 3 since Rodgers won his first.
Well, we should mention that Chiefs play the Lions in Detroit. It'll be Patrick Mahomes' first indoor game of his pro career. If you thought he looked great outdoors,
how about that?
How fast do you think and how productive do you think he'll be indoors? All right, we'll take
Patricia
a break.
better take that pencil off his ear and start drawing up some coverages.
Unlaminate some of that paperwork. Back here, first things first, joined by Coach Eric Mangini. Hey, Coach.
What up,
good
my
morning.
friend?
How is everybody?
We are good. Nice to see you. Talking some Patriots this morning. So after cruising past the Jets in Week 3, the New England Patriots limp into Week 4 to face pretty good 3-0 Buffalo Bills team. The word limp might be an understatement. Yesterday, Tom Brady was placed on the injury report with a calf injury. He's one of 10 players on the injury list, their longest list of the season thus far, a list that includes Michael Bennett, Julian Edelman, and Dante Hightower. Here's Tom Brady on his limited workload yesterday.
Football is it's a contact sport, so I wouldn't say I'm a spring chicken anymore. So I'm trying to just, feel as great as I can and see how it goes tomorrow. So, but I feel pretty good.
Coach, do these New England Patriot injuries concern you in any way?
No, not at all. You look at the injury report. The injury report is fluid, and New England's injury report's been fluid for a long time. And sometimes there's 28 guys on the injury report. Sometimes there's 3 guys on the injury report, depending on what the league, how much pressure the league's putting on him to add every single hangnail and ingrown toenail and all that other stuff. But this isn't a team that looks at injuries or deals with injuries in the way that a lot of other places do. There's always consistent preparation with the guy that's behind, and even guys that are on injured reserve or guys that are not going to be playing it anytime soon are preparing like they're playing that week, so that when they do come back, they have the potential to go in and operate at a very high level. To me, it's going to be really interesting in this game to see some of the matchups with Brian Daboll there. And that's the most exciting part of this game for me. Brian Daboll, who was my offensive coordinator in Cleveland, who's been an offensive coordinator for the Dolphins, who was with New England for a long, long time, being able to go back with a revamped offense and affect this defense and see how he attacks this defense. That, to me, is the most interesting part of this game overall. You look at Brady, I know he's on the injury report, and I know you don't like his humor, but he's got the highest quarterback rating that he's had since his undefeated season at this point. It's early, so you can't look at any quarterback rating and get too excited about it, Nick. But it is the highest quarterback rating that he's had since the undefeated season. So I think the injury report is just a little bit of an aside.
Okay, the injury report might be an aside, but the IR is a real thing. And you can only bring back 2 guys from the IR. It used to be 0, then it was 1, now it's 2. James Devlin, who is the only fullback in the NFL who ever gets discussed because of how the Patriots use him. He was oddly a critical part of the way they decided to play football last year. He's on the IR. Their number 1 pick, N'Keal Harry. He's at wide receiver. The first wide receiver Belichick drafted number 1 since Derek Alexander, quarter century ago in Cleveland. He's on the IR. And the number 1 pick from last year, Isaiah Wynn, is on the IR again. At least one of those guys is not coming back. So right now they went from Nate Solder to Trent Brown to Isaiah Wynn. Nate Solder now plays for the Giants, doesn't play that well. Trent Brown now plays for the Raiders. Isaiah Wynn's back on the IR after playing 2 career NFL games. And now we're on Marshall Newhouse as our left tackle, who, by the way, missed or was limited in practice with an illness. At some point, the accumulation of injuries, particularly at the spot where the Patriots offense was trying to be different, which is we're going to have 2 tight ends and we're going to bloody your nose. You always say they don't want to dance, they want to punch. Well, you got to have some fighters. And if you don't have your fullback, your center's done for the year, your left tackle is at least temporarily done for the year, and he was your 3rd different left tackle in 3 seasons. Once you start playing real defenses, which start this Sunday, that has to matter at some point. Even if you have the greatest infrastructure, coaching staff, and even if Dante Scarnecchia might truly become one of the first positional coaches ever to make the Hall of Fame, which he might. Like, I don't say that tongue-in-cheek. That at some point, the Jimmys and Joes outweigh the X's and the O's, to misquote Chris Carter.
And Tom Brady's been hit the second least amount and hurried the second least amount of any quarterback in the NFL, right?
Some of that is who they're playing, though, right?
And, Josh Gordon, who couldn't play anywhere else, is suddenly playing at a very high level. Antonio Brown was there a couple of weeks ago, was a big part of the offense, and now he's gone, and nobody really has made a big deal about it. And they bring in what is it? It's not NFL Europe, but a European player, the German fullback that they have, and they've talked about the progress that he's made. Okay, so them being able to take a player like that, put him into a role, a substantial role, and expect him to perform at a high level isn't unreasonable.
Yeah, it's not unreasonable, but there are 2 injuries that I am concerned about. Tom Brady, you mentioned it, hadn't been hit, lack of pressure. Why is he missing practice? Tom Brady loves to practice. Tom Brady realizes practice is very important. Now, if him and Belichick had agreed they're on some type of maintenance program, because at this stage we've never seen a quarterback at this stage, I would say okay. But I don't believe it's that. I do believe that Tom does have, and that's been a couple weeks with that calf injury. So now if Tom does have a calf, and I don't know who's going to be his blindside protector, ultimately, when these games get tighter, Tom's going to have to move around a little bit more. So as the season goes on, I'm concerned. I'm watching for Tom Brady. Is he practicing Wednesday? And is he practicing Thursday? And the other player I'm concerned about, you can make excuses for all the other because they do cover up, Sony Michel. And the reason why I'm worried about Sony Michel, because they do not have another pure running back on the Burkhead is not that. James White is not that. So if Tom Brady was to get hurt, and with Sony Michel, if he's hurt, those are guys that they can't replace. Tom Brady does know this, though. I got the #1 defense, and my special teams are great. So they won't take too many chances on the offensive side. But there's a lot of injuries that they've been able to overcome. These are two that I'm just going to watch in particular because I don't believe their productivity can be replaced.
Nick, are we suddenly worried about the Patriots this weekend against Buffalo?
Well, listen, I think Buffalo's far and away the best team they've played. I think Buffalo presents the most problems defensively of any team. Now, I am not going to be I picked the Bills to make the playoffs, and there are people, I see them yesterday, a lot of people are picking the Bills to beat the Patriots. I am not picking Josh Allen to beat Tom Brady in a football game. I'm not comfortable doing that. But I am comfortable saying this offense is going to be pressured and going to have Brady's going to be pressured in a way he is yet to be pressured this year. And you mentioned Antonio Brown. A very interesting thing happened last week that Cris picked up on that I think most people did not. The Antonio Brown, the last straw, was those apparently text messages to the second accuser. Those came out in the middle of the night, Thursday night into Friday. He practiced Friday. He got paid for the work week. But knowing that was there, Bill Belichick looked at his roster and said, you know what? If we can hold on to him, we're going to. I think because he looked at it and said, damn, we might actually need him. It wasn't until around 4 p.m. Eastern that day that he was cut after practicing, after that information had come out. I think Belichick knows that while they might have the best defense in football and they always have great special teams, that's a credit to coaching as much as anything. This offense is losing guys by the week, and Antonio could have been an important piece for them.
To Chris's point, I think the concern for me comes with the fact they signed Cody Kessler. That to me is a little bit more of a concern. The fact that they're
concerned about Brady, okay,
that they're bringing in a quarterback
another arm to take the reps off Brady's arm.
That was surprising to me in terms of him getting pressured in a way he's never seen. There's not a pressure that Tom Brady hasn't seen.
I didn't say never. I said this year, this season. This is the best defense they have faced this season.
Yeah, well, they played a couple JV teams. Now they're getting ready to play the varsity.
And in terms of Antonio Brown, did they hold on to him after there was a couple texts? Yeah, but they brought him in with everything that they knew. Of course they're going to try to hold on to him as long as they possibly can to see if it can work out. They brought him in with their eyes wide open, and then they were going to see if they can make it work. When they couldn't make it work, they moved on, and really you haven't heard much about it since.
All right, let's take a break. I think he's going back to school, so we did learn that. Back here with Coach Mangini. Let's go, viral coach. Jets rookie first-round pick Quinnen Williams has been a walking meme ever since he was drafted, so it was only appropriate he channeled his inner Oprah to give us a recreation of one of the best memes of all time.
We need you to dress like Oprah, though.
Oprah. Let me see.
Look at this. Rick James is in the house, everybody. How do you feel right now?
I feel.
That's awesome. It's not often that I can say immediately that's going to break the internet.
That's definitely going to break the internet right there. That's probably destroy the internet.
I know he likes it because we're FaceTiming everybody in this phone.
Everybody, that's right here. Look. And I will always love you. That's so funny.
All right, so everyone should go to Adam Lefkoe's Twitter account, by the way. He did about 15 different memes. Adam Lefkoe, by the way, my old college radio partner. Known him for part of 15 years, doing a great job at Bleacher Report. Quinnen Williams, one of your favorite people in the NFL.
This kid.
I think the youngest person in the NFL right now, and one of the best players on the New York Jets. Ton of fun. I don't know why you're shaking your head because you just don't like fun.
No, I think the Jets have a lot of free time. The fact that they're undefeated
oh my God.
must just free up a lot of time to focus on something like that.
Yeah, coach.
The meme for you would be, you get a Hall of Fame jacket, you get a Hall of Fame jacket, you get a Hall of Fame jacket. Nick, it's week one, it doesn't matter. Well, of course.
Oh, my God. I can't, Coach, I say this with all due respect. I can't imagine how hard you are on your boys. Like, oh, you want to hang out this weekend? Do you have 100% in all your classes and everything? Don't you have more work to do?
You think it's harder to be the Suns or harder to play for him as a coach?
Oh, I don't know, man.
Someone told me
the play.
Hold on.
Someone told me a long time ago, discipline is not something you do to someone, it's something you do
for someone.
So it's the gift that keeps on giving.
So thank you, Coach.
Coach is just anti-fun.
Thank you so much.
It's just anti-fun.
Look like they're anti-winning.
Jeez Louise.
Let's move on to the Browns, who thought this season was going to be far more fun than it
Coach
was.
called this one.
Another fun bunch.
Browns, and I'm on your page with this. Browns head into Week 4 still scratching their collective heads a bit as to why this team is off to such a slow start. Because everyone thought by adding Odell Beckham to this talented roster, the team, at least the offense, would flourish. But Cleveland is scoring just 16 points per game, tied for 27th in the NFL. Baker was asked about his team's struggles. Take a listen to this.
We expected to have success early on. We didn't expect it to be easy, but I think that's the frustrating part is we wanted it to be easy, but now I think we really know it's not. People are going to game plan. They're going to have a certain strategy for us, and we need to be able to adapt. Talent's not going to take us there. We just have to do our job.
You know, contrary to popular belief, we're not that far away. So, you know, it's my job to make these guys understand that, and I think they do. I think they've bought into the fact that they don't really care what's going on outside of our building.
You hear a lot of things, you know, stuff pops up on your phone, or stuff's on the TV, or, I mean, it's just people talk. And so you just have to make a conscious decision, you know, to protect your locker room and take care of your guys and block out the negative stuff. And, you know, when they're patting you on the back, to me, that's even worse.
Coach, what did you think of what Baker Mayfield had to say, and Freddie Kitchens there?
A long time ago, when I was with Bill Parcells, he used to talk about the three things you got to overcome every week, and it's division from within, so it's your own locker room, and then it's the external distraction. It's really the media, and then you finally get to the opponent. And these guys, they didn't do anything to damper the expectations. They just added fuel to the fire. And the whole idea that they're blocking out external noise, that it doesn't bother them. I'm walking through Times Square last night to get dinner, and on the ticker, it's Baker Mayfield responds to Rex Ryan's criticism about him as a quarterback. And look, I love Rex Ryan. He's a great friend of mine, but he's got a tattoo of Sanchez on his leg. So you got to take the quarterback evaluations with a grain of salt.
He's got a tattoo of his wife Sanchez jersey.
Yeah, whatever it is. So you got to take it with a little bit of grain of salt.
Neither one are good.
And the fact that you're responding to a criticism like that, it has nothing to do.
But you're doing the opposite of what you're saying.
It's like it doesn't bother me. However, let me respond to the 17 things that I read about during my lunch break where someone slightly criticized me or slighted me in some way. It doesn't matter. The only thing you need to worry about is the next opponent. And as soon as they get to that point, as soon as they realize that it's focusing on the next task at hand and not talking about the playoffs and not talking about how great they're going to be and not planning their Super Bowl celebration, and just work on the next player. Don't even work on the next game. Work on the next meeting or the next practice or the next rep. Like, narrow your focus, and that will help you in the big picture, and stop responding to every little criticism that's out there.
Yeah, Coach has a lot of the same feelings that I have. They keep inviting the media. They keep saying things. Also, Baker, if he wanted to say something, he should have talked about I wear a size 12 about his feet or something. That would have got Rex Ryan to be able to be quiet right there.
Then he would have said something. Instead of, we wanted it to be easy.
Right. There is no easy. There's nothing easy about the NFL. There's nothing. Anytime I try to explain the NFL, it was the toughest part of my life ever going through the NFL. Trying to be successful in the NFL was the toughest thing that I've ever done. Trying to be a consistent starter and be an all-star in the NFL. It was the toughest thing that I've ever done. And I committed my whole life to it. I committed my whole life to learning the passing tree, to learning defenses, to learning what they were trying to do, so I could have variety, so I can have a long career. At no point did I ever think it was going to be easy. And every time I played the opposition that was one of the worst ones, I psyched myself up to realize this is a pro out there. And if you don't play well, they can make you look bad. That is the life in the NFL. And not only do players, but coaches and organizations, they need to learn how to win and how to cultivate a mentality that you don't have to. There's a reason why people in New England aren't saying it's us against the media and everything. They've been trained about it. And if you don't train them, and if you don't talk about things, you have players saying stupid stuff all the time. Baker's saying, man, we thought it was going to be easy. I wouldn't have told anybody that.
Well, that's the biggest red flag. Because even in New England, we did see last year Edelman with the nobody believed in us mantra, selling the T-shirts, the people saying to Tom Brady, you're too old, you're too old.
But that wasn't the team. That's Edelman.
Sure.
That's not the team. They are not coming in and saying, you know something, guys? There's no one outside this room that believes in them. Now, other teams in the league do that all the time.
Philly with the underdog masks.
Yeah.
We've seen teams do that and have it work for them. But the problem for Cleveland is it's all of the above. And the biggest issue I have with Baker saying we wanted it to be easy is it is the organization's job, John Dorsey and Freddie Kitchens, to make sure their 23-year-old, brash, unique as far as his leadership style starting quarterback, does not think that this could ever be easy. Like, that is, it's not, you say all the time, Coach, you can't blame the slow guy for being slow. Well, you can't blame the second-year player for not knowing what he doesn't know if you're not teaching it to him.
You can't blame the brash guy for being brash. You can't blame the immature guy for being immature. You'd like to think that as people get older, as they have experiences, as they're given responsibilities, as they learn that there will be some progress. It's different than a physical trait.
Agreed.
Because you have the ability to see cause and effect and develop.
No. Maybe I said it wrong. I'm not saying you can't blame Baker for how he carries himself. So maybe I phrased it poorly. I'm saying for a player who hasn't spent 16 years in the league, who hadn't coached in the league, a guy who's been around the NFL going into this year, 13 starts, you have to let him know this is the opposite of easy. This is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done.
Look at a guy like Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson played last year, whether it was easy or not, spent all offseason. No one had to tell him whether it was going to be easy or not.
Wait a second. Throwing at a rundown high school field. Didn't send it out on Twitter, went and got his receivers and everything. Yes.
That's my point. And then came back this year as a different player. He didn't need to be told by the organization, this is what you need to work on for it to be easier.
I would say that last thing that you said, you have no idea if that's true. You have no idea how much John Harbaugh and the organization that is the Baltimore Ravens, that's been a great organization since they've gone to Baltimore, had to do with Lamar's approach this offseason, with Lamar's approach with the media, with the player Lamar has turned into. Let
me tell you what they say about Lamar, because I did their game 2 weeks ago. From the PR director to the owner of the team, every day that they've seen Lamar, he's had a smile on his face. He's been a special type of kid. They always thought that he was going to be a superstar. They thought he had unbelievable humble traits. His learning of football, what he learned under Bobby Petrino there at Louisville, he was a sponge for it. So in the offseason, Greg Roman, he saw that. But they have institutional talent there. At the end of the season, Harbaugh talked about what Lamar was going to be as a quarterback. Now, they do a lot of the other stuff. Messaging, they have someone that sits down with Lamar. And when these questions come up, they have a person that would have corrected the answers for Lamar.
Right.
So not only from an ownership, they got the coach, they have the PR director, they have everything. That's how you win championships. All right? They've only been playing there 21 years since they come back to Baltimore. They got 2 championships. So the overall support and the personality, Jenna, you are right. His personality is different than Baker. And what they put him on, the course, it wasn't hard for them because that's what he wanted. He told them, I want to be a pocket passer. Him and Greg Roman and them mapped out what they were going to do in the offseason, and he went about doing that, and that's what we're seeing in Lamar thus far.
And Cris talks about how hard the NFL is. I've been trying to catch up with a friend of mine who's coaching right now, and he said, I'll call you when I get a chance. And he called last night at 2 in the morning, and I picked up the phone because I knew that was his window of opportunity because the weeks are hard. Anybody who comes into the NFL and thinks it's going to be easy with the world-class athletes, with the way that people work, there's no graduating classes. The good players continue to stay, and the league has a way of humbling you. So just like I tell my kids, hey, the stove is hot, and then they still touch it, and they're surprised when they get burned. The league is hard, It's hard.
There's another quarterback that learned that hard example. His name's RG3, and he's resurrected his career in Baltimore as Lamar's backup. He's talking to Lamar every day. He had a better rookie year than Baker had. Remember how he was going to take over the league?
Right.
Oh, this is the new thing.
Right.
Until Elodie Nada shattered his knee. But so you can have short-term success in this league, but to have long-term success, you got to have some maturity about you, and it's a day-to-day methodical thing, what we call, I'm going to the rock pile, boss, and I'm going there to work.
All right, we got to take a break. Will you pick up my call at 2 a.m.? No. Yeah, right. Carson Wentz and the Eagles have gotten off to a frustrating start, losing their last 2 games by a combined 7 points. However, Wentz still optimistic. Take a listen.
We're not really looking at this as a bad spot. We're 1-2, yeah, but, we have a lot of the season left, and we're little things here and there in each game that we know we're going to get corrected, and we're going to be in a good spot. And like I said, we're excited Thursday night to go show what we can do and get going back in the win column.
Cris, how crucial is this game for the Philadelphia Eagles?
If you look at it, and my man Nick, as much as I've been trained through all my years, the week to week, you got to be focused, one practice at a time, one meeting at a time. Coach Mangini, one game at a time. You look out on the horizon, though, it could get nasty. I know they got a good roster. I know they have a general manager people trust. Even the head coach people trust. But, man, the way their schedule is the next 7 weeks, their season could be over. And I'm not overreacting. Or they'll at least they're just scrambling for a wild card spot. I don't look for the Dallas Cowboys to look back. I know they're going to get double-digit wins, and potentially they could get as many as 12 wins. And that can potentially happen. So now every game you're below 500, it becomes very important.
Here's where they're at in my eyes. And sorry if I interrupted you there.
They did.
If they lose, if they lose tonight, their only path to a division championship is sweeping the Cowboys. If you lose tonight, then the only way to make up for this first quarter of the season is if you go 2-0 when you get to face Dallas later this year. Because the stretch Cris is talking about is after tonight they have the Jets, so you give them a win for that. But then at the Vikings, at the Cowboys, at the Bills, home for Chicago, a bye week, and then you face New England. You might be like, oh, at least we get a bye before we face New England. New England has a bye the same week. So you're both coming off a bye, getting ready to face each other. That's as tough of a 5-week stretch of defenses as you're going to face. And so it is the closest you can have to a must-win game in Week 4. That's where, I don't think unless you're 0-3, you can really have a must-win game in Week 4. And if you're 0-3, you're probably cooked anyway. But for the Eagles, on a short week to go into Green Bay, it's not hyperbole to say their season is teetering right now. And if they lose tonight, it's that car on the edge of the cliff in the movies where one bird lands on the trunk and it falls off. That's where they're at.
So how do the Eagles beat the Packers tonight? What's going to be the key for them not letting this game get out of hand, stay with it, and then ultimately beat them?
Number one is I had to go to the Packers because I believe the Packers are going to score some points on the Eagles. All right? Eagles down their second defensive tackle, their third defensive tackle, their number one cornerback. So I do believe that. So for me, Carson Wentz, he's going to have to play a game where he doesn't turn the ball over. They're going to have to throw for at least 300 yards, and we're going to have to be able to find why in the heck did they trade for the running back Jordan Howard? Why did they trade for him? He should be a heavy part of their workload week in and week out, and especially last week. You have D-Jack out, Alshon's out, and you still don't rely on him? So for me, when are the Eagles going to run the football? And is that offensive line, are they really one the elite offensive line? And Jason Peters, is he washed up? I got a lot of respect for him. But the tape that he's putting out there right now is not the type of tape that if he ever is a Hall of Famer,
they're going to show.
It won't be on it. So a lot of responsibility up front, Jenna. They got to score some points. And this offensive line, they have to be dominant.
And I know this is going to sound simplistic. They need their best players to play their best games of the year. That's not just Wentz. That's also Fletcher Cox. I've been saying Fletcher
last week's
Cox,
game, I was shocked by that.
It was first time in at least 3 years he had a bagel and everything. No quarterback hits, no hurries, no sacks, no tackles, nothing. I've been saying Fletcher Cox is maybe the most underrated defensive player in football. That one day he could win a Defensive Player of the Year award. He has not played like it this year. The Eagles as a team have 2 sacks. You look at the Los Angeles Rams. Aaron Donald, until this game against Cleveland, he had a quiet year, but there was so much attention on him. Clay Matthews and Dante Fowler Jr., but were both having monster years. It's not that Fletcher Cox is getting double and triple teams so other guys are getting involved. It's no, that the Eagles as a whole have not had a pass rush. Has to start with him, and of course, you get Alshon Jeffrey back, as you mentioned earlier, Jenna. He and Carson Wentz getting on the same page, trying to take advantage of a Green Bay secondary that has a great player in Jair Alexander.
All right, Eagles and Packers, Thursday Night Football tonight on Fox. Welcome back to First Things First. It's time to make your picks for Thursday Night Football Super 6, the free-to-play game where you can win up to $25,000 of Terry Bradshaw's money. One of the questions for tonight's game is which team will win and by how many points? Take a look at your options. Nick, who are you taking?
Packers going to win the game. They're going to cover the 4. They're going to win from 7 to 14 points. Packers by 7 to 14. I'm thinking Packers by 10. Says 7 to 14 feels right, so that's my answer. Packers, that's a good-looking guy. Packers by 7 to 14.
All the games the Packers have played have been close.
Yes.
Even Denver last week without an offense. I believe the Eagles played their best game of the season. The game is closer than that. Packers win by less than 6.
6 or less, right? It'll
Yeah.
give you the number 6 as well. That counts. And even a tie, you'll win. So you have Packers
no ties tonight.
Oh, well, I hope not. But I'm saying if there were, your pick would be
absolutely.
correct.
Just be casual, like whatever you feel comfortable with. Don't wear a tie. Before the game kicks off tonight, download the Fox Sports Super 6 app. Play Thursday Night Football Super 6 for free for a chance to win $25,000.
It's getting worse, Jenna.
Of Terry Bradshaw's money. He said no tie tonight.
Jenna,
I said you should be casual.
We all got it.
I thought it was very good. Sticking with Thursday Night Football, for some stories to start your morning. Aaron Rodgers isn't off to a great start, but the Eagles' defense has allowed the 4th most passing yards this season. Chris Carter, will Aaron Rodgers break out tonight?
If I'm Matt LaFleur, what I'm doing is I'm doing a little more no huddle. I'm going to release the offense a little more. The reason why, the Eagles, they're down. Their number 2 defensive tackle, number 3 defensive tackle, their number 1 cornerback. Imagine no huddle where they can't substitute. You got those backups on the ball. That's what I would do. Aaron Rodgers breaks out tonight, over 275 passing.
I agree with that 100%. I think the strategy is great as well. Not something I had thought of, but I will probably mention it tonight on the radio show. Third downs, Philly, Carson Wentz, that's been his signature and his best years with the team. The Packers this year have been terrible on third downs. If they can stay on the field, elongate drives, that will unlock so much of their offense. They'll be able to get to more of Matt LaFleur's offense if they're not going 3 and out. So, yes, I think he breaks out. I think they're better on third downs. I think the Packers obviously win the game.
All right, moving on. Melvin Gordon, who's been holding out, will be reportedly rejoining the LA Chargers today, but he will not play Sunday in Miami against the Dolphins. See, how much of a boost will his return give the Chargers?
I believe Melvin's a good player, but he overplayed himself by missing all the. It doesn't make sense for me. In the situation, you have to know who the opposition is, and the opposition is the Chargers front office. Now, they got a pretty good record in holding out, holding stingy with the money, all types of things like that. So I don't miss any type of games. They do get better. Now, did they put themselves in a position that they're only playing for the wild card because Kansas City is red hot? The team did get better, but they still got a number of injuries that I'm concerned about, Nick.
Melvin Gordon, we said the moment he announced he was holding out, like, hold on, man. In today's running back market, the 9th or 10th best running back in football, holding out with a team that is notoriously cheap, I think is a fair way to put it. It's not going to work out well for him. He got nothing out of this. He ended up costing himself upwards of $2 million. Now, I hope he eventually gets paid, and I feel badly that this is the situation he found himself in, but I think he got bad advice. It's his agent, it's his representation's job to say, you're going to be running into a brick wall here. He ran into a brick wall, cost himself a couple million, and the team's in a rough
And he's
spot.
a smart kid, man. They got smart kids that come from Wisconsin.
Despite Sam Pepper. Agreed.
He wants to be one of the top paid backs in the league. Yesterday, Tom Brady was placed on the Patriots injury report with a calf issue. He's one of 10 players that was limited at New England's practice. See, how concerned are the are you with the Patriots injuries?
I'm a little concerned with the injuries as far as the offensive line. I'm going to put a little more concern to Tom Brady's calf. That's been 2 weeks in a row. Tom's a guy who loves the practice. And also, they signed another quarterback. Kind of strange we signed another quarterback because we know through the Garoppolo experience, Tom is not a guy that wants to give reps to a younger player. So that's something I am watching.
There are 4 guys that going into the season we thought would be significant contributors who are on IR. Your center's on IR, your left tackle's on IR, your fullback's on IR. This is the only team in the league that relies on a fullback. And their number 1 pick wide receiver's on IR. That's not even mentioning Brady's calf. So at some point, the people playing football has to matter for your football team, and the Patriots are on a lot of replacement level players.
All right, time now for Nick's favorite part of the show. It's called Nick Makes a List.
Yeah, let's do that.
Today, Nick, you're ranking the best teams in the NFL.
Just a little warning, Chris Carter. This could become a Thursday staple if it goes well.
Nick and I have a little thing. The first year didn't go so well for Nick. He took a couple jabs to the chin. So now he warns me, hey, here comes the crazy stuff.
Here comes a list. And by the way, contrary to what Chris said last week, this was actually my good friend Chris Carter's idea. Chris came into a meeting one day and said, Nick's love making lists. I hate making lists. Why don't we just do what Nick makes a list segment?
Yeah,
I can
but
make fun
I
of
was
it.
trying to do some programming for your radio show.
Appreciate that. Number 8.
Thank
the
you.
8th best team in the NFL today.
Here we go.
Is the undefeated Buffalo Bills.
Why don't we have 9?
Because a quarter of the league. I'm trying to do 25% of the league.
Okay.
8 out of 32, exactly 25%.
Finally has a reason.
No problem. Buffalo Bills, elite defense. Why aren't they higher at undefeated? Well, because of that guy. I'm a little afraid of Josh Allen. He's better than last year, but not enough better that I can fully rely on him. Great defense, questions at quarterback, 8th best team.
He's got to run for 75 yards for them to pull the upset over New England.
Oh, okay. Teams 8 and 7, very similar. Dominant defenses, questions at quarterback. Number 7, Chicago Bears. I know the Bears have a loss, but that loss is to Green Bay. Green Bay's a great team. Not going to hold that loss against them too much. Defense, even with the loss of Vic Fangio, their defensive coordinator, seems to have picked up where it left off last year. Worried about Trubisky, worried about the kicking.
That was my preseason pick to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. Mid-season, we're going to repick it. Don't know if Trubisky and the Bears going to be on my Super Bowl picks then.
Number 6, another team that has 1 loss, but it's hard to hold it against them, the Baltimore Ravens. Love everything about this team. The progression of the quarterback. 2 of the biggest offseason additions any team in the NFL made were made Mark Ingram, Earl Thomas, 2 guys on the Baltimore Ravens. You have a great head coach in John Harbaugh. Tough loss to Kansas City, but they've looked great outside of that. I got the Ravens at number 6.
Seeding in the AFC becomes really important because you want to avoid Baltimore.
Yep, absolutely. If you're the 2 seed, probably play Baltimore in the 2nd round, supposed to be in the 1 seed. Number 5, the undefeated Los Angeles Rams. This was a team that I appear to have missed on. I had them missing the playoffs. What I didn't anticipate was this is the best defense Sean McVay's ever had. Wade Phillips in year 3 is doing a better job than he did in year 1 or 2, even maybe with slightly inferior personnel. The Packers said, we don't need you anymore, Clay Matthews. He's been great for the Los Angeles Rams. They need Goff to pick it up, but they've got some quality wins. Carolina, New Orleans, and Cleveland en route to being 3-0.
Yeah, that's a little high for my liking. Todd Gurley is damaged goods.
Number 4, Dallas Cowboys. Only critique on the Cowboys is the competition. Right now, they're doing everything well. They are running the ball at an elite level. Dak is throwing the ball at an elite level. The defense has played excellent. Aside from the first half against Miami, where they were a little lethargic, it's tough to pick nits at any segment of football for the undefeated Cowboys. Similarly with the number 3 team, the New England Patriots. The only critique on the New England Patriots is the caliber of competition. Defense hasn't allowed a touchdown. Tom Brady's playing great. Sony Michel hasn't been the guy you hoped he would be, and there have been injuries. But those 2 teams, if they had played better competition, you'd have them higher on the list. But Cowboys and Patriots.
Yeah, Nick is right. You can only overcome so much talent as far as with the coaching. It's a concern, all those injuries.
With the injuries. But number 2, The Green Bay Packers. Why are the Packers ahead of the Patriots and Cowboys? Because the Packers 3-0 has come against Chicago and Minnesota as two of those wins. Two teams that are 4-0 in games where they're not playing the Green Bay Packers. I believe Aaron Rodgers is going to start looking like Aaron Rodgers starting tonight. That defense is better than even the most optimistic Packer fans could hope for. And, of course, the number one team in the NFL, because they have the best player in the NFL. They have an offense that no one can catch up with, the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. They hung 40 on the Jags. They hung 33 on Baltimore. Two great defenses. They've played 2 games on the road. Mahomes about to play his first career game in a dome. Probably light him up for about 500 this weekend. Number one team in football, the Chiefs.
And our guy AJ, our barber, he's got these custom-made Chiefs clippers he's cutting Nick Wright's head with
true.
yesterday.
Absolutely. I'll tweet those out. That's very nice of AJ making me those clippers. You got some Minnesota Viking ones as well.
But I'm a star, though. I mean, that's what I've been having that for a long time.
Oh, okay.
Eagles.
There it is.
Where the Eagles didn't make it.
The Eagles didn't make it. You know who's top 2, though? You guys kept talking about your guys' Super Bowl pick.
No,
Chiefs,
his
Packers.
Super Bowl pick is on there. My Super Bowl pick's not.
Yeah, well, okay. I'm just saying 1 and 2. Chiefs, Packers, my Super Bowl pick. If we're just mentioning those, and y'all got the Patriots. The
Coming up,
Patriots.
speaking of the Chiefs,
Patriots.
Mahomes going to keep up his
What do you think this is? 2018?
It's next. First things first.
Patriots.
Tom
Weird
Brady's
guy.
got what Mr. Tickle's got.
What's that?
Tight calves.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.